honey, organic brown sugar, maple syrup, or fruit sugar. But are there any other ways to deal with the problem? Well, sure, try fasting. Fasting for
Headlines went around the world about a week ago regarding a newly discovered 30...
Connected to iPhone.
Ton black granite sarcophagus, the largest ever found in the ancient city of Alexandria, Egypt. Not only that, but it is sealed shut with thick mortar, indicating that it has never been opened since its burial, avoiding grave robbers for thousands of years, which is actually a very rare find. Now, everyone is wondering who or what will they find inside of it. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing some really interesting details about this newly discovered stone box. Details that were somehow left out of the hundreds of news articles from around the world on this topic. And the implications of these details leave us with some serious questions that scientists, archaeologists, and historians all need to address. But perhaps more significant is that it was just announced today, July 18th, that they will be opening this stone box in just 2 days from today. Quote, Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities has finally decided to open a mysterious sarcophagus uncovered in Alexandria within the next 2 days, according to the head of Ministry of Antiquities Project Sector. It went on to say that they will use thick pipes to raise the sarcophagus.
But them crown boys don't get no sleep, huh? Why is you even up right now? My dude, it's like 2 in the morning where I'm at. I had to take a shit. That's why I'm up. I had to take a shit. I went to the bathroom. Couldn't fall back to sleep. I said, fuck it. I come in the studio. That's my excuse. What's your excuse for being up?
Sarcophagus lid until they can see what's inside of it. Once something is found, a specialized restoration team will immediately take over, transferring the contents into an Alexandria museum storage to quickly start restoration procedures. Quote, if nothing is found inside the sarcophagus and we do not find any inscriptions on the coffin's body, we will keep it in place until it can be lifted later. So first of all, everybody needs to demand that the opening of this sarcophagus is done on live TV, or even better yet, live streaming on the internet. They could even do it right here on YouTube, and for free. Make no mistake, everyone from around the world has a right to be part of this exciting discovery involving our ancient past. But not only that, with the numerous examples of corruption and theft involving Egyptian antiquities in the past, full transparency on this is a must. And I'll be discussing more details about that later in this video. First, let me share some really interesting aspects about this sarcophagus and the things that they did not tell you about in the news articles, including where this black granite originates from, which you may find a bit fascinating. First of all, it's more than 30 metric tons. And to clarify the difference between a US ton and a metric ton, because not everybody knows, a metric ton is 1,000 kilograms and a US ton is 2,000 pounds. In other words, this coffin is estimated to be no less than 66,000 pounds. In fact, the lid itself is 15 tons. And although it is not the largest sarcophagus ever found, it is the largest discovered within Alexandria, measuring nearly 9 feet long, 5.5 feet wide, and a staggering 6 feet tall. And that equates to 2.7 meters long, 1.5 by 1.8 meters in height. One thing that is significant besides its size and weight is that it's made of black granite stone. And the closest place where black granite can be found in the region is either in Aswan, Egypt, which is about 140 miles away or 223 kilometers, or the mountainous region of eastern Egypt known as Sinai, which is 366 miles or 589 kilometers away. And just look at the map. The further distance to Sinai is not as the crow flies, but with the distance of the windy roads that go up and down the Sinai Mountains, which of course begs the question of how they could have, and why would they, transport 66,000 pounds of stone up and down mountains. Obviously, the technique suggested by Egyptologists of sliding on wooden sleds or rolling on tree logs isn't going to work from this site. So likely that it would have come from Aswan, which is about, like I said, 140 miles away, but
they could utilize barges on the Nile River as suggested by archaeologists. And although that's feasible, and I don't doubt this method, I would still like to see them actually demonstrate them load and unload these two 15-ton pieces of this box onto a boat and then unload it, all while dealing with the issues of balance and counterweight. I mean, this is a theorized method and not necessarily what the ancient Egyptians actually used. But that aside, what is more interesting is where they found the sarcophagus. It was discovered by accident during construction of a new building within the city of Alexandria. And keep in mind that this city is densely populated. This only further validates that much of the remnants of ancient Egypt is literally under the streets and houses that exist today. This is something that I've discussed before, and take the example of the massive statue discovered in March of 2017, found in the middle of...
But you one hard-working motherfucker, bro. You be at work all the goddamn time. So, you work third shift? Because you be at work early in the morning when out, like regular. 7, 8 o'clock, your ass still be at fucking work. What the fuck kind of shift your ass be working, bro? Why the fuck are y'all motherfuckers up? Goddamn, hey, man. Man, it's 2:16 a.m. Ain't y'all supposed to be asleep some way? I don't even know why the fuck I'm still up. Y'all be tripping me out, bro. 2 o'clock in the morning, y'all watching somebody fucking paint. Y'all weird as fuck, man. Damn. I'm a night owl. Shaman, the only reason, Shaman, the only person got a reason to be up. That motherfucker at work. Glenn, this motherfucker just got insomnia. Jay, I know you sell weed, Jay. You just up trying to catch a fucking sale. Take your ass to sleep, motherfucker. Motherfucker just up. Tired of watching porn. Well, this is shit. Watch somebody paint for a little while. So what we're listening to is so I haven't. This is the first time I've heard anything about this. Well, this is the first time I've listened to anyone say anything about this new black sarcophagi or sarcophagus. But so all the people on my social media who I accept as friends, like Facebook and Twitter and all that shit, like I follow a lot of people, but gotta be like on the same shit that I'm on, because that's how I get my news. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers who try to find the same type of information I be dealing with, damn right. Because when you find something, maybe you'll find that shit before I do. And so like a couple days ago, I was scrolling through Facebook and somebody posted this article about, yo, in fucking Egypt they found this weird ass fucking black sarcophagus. It's a black granite sarcophagus that apparently has never been opened. And I'm like, what? And so I read like the little article. They posted a link to this little article. I read that shit. And then I've been meaning to fucking look that shit up and get more information on it. But too, it's weird how fucking all these media shits are connected now. Like I say, that shit, somebody posted the article on my Facebook page. I clicked on the article, I read it. 2 days later, I'm scrolling down on my YouTube and it pops up in my headlines. Now, is it just popping up because it's brand new news? Or is that shit popping up because I already clicked on a link on a different fucking site, and that shit is just tracking the information that I'm interested in. That shit is weird, bro.
Cairo, and who knows what else is hidden and buried in the immediate area around that discovery. Another good example is the 2017 discovery of a 130,000-year-old set of mastodon bones that have evidence of human tooling and cut marks, which proves that ancient humans were in America well over 100,000 years before ever thought possible by academics. And the implications of this are enormous, as it debunks what scientists thought they knew about the human migration process. Now, I've discussed that in other videos, but the reason why I'm bringing it up again is because this discovery happened by accident while doing construction on a freeway in San Diego, California. And so when you look at the vastness of the modern city of Giza as an example, we can only imagine what lay hidden just meters underneath that city. But to re-emphasize my point, all of these recent discoveries were found by accident. So just imagine what we'd find if we actually went looking underneath the modern infrastructure around ancient sites from around the world. So going back to the black sarcophagus discovery, and that reminds me, and this isn't to sound like a smartass or anything, but they are of course using heavy machinery to lift this 30-ton stone box out of the 16.5-foot deep or 5 meters deep hole where it was found. And it's kind of funny how Egyptologists never actually demonstrate the theorized lifting techniques they claim the ancients could have used. And I'm not even suggesting that I doubt these techniques. In fact, I would bet money that they did use pulleys, but I feel obligated to point out that most people that teach this and write about it in textbooks actually sit behind desks for a living and never actually try out any of these theories with their own hands. I mean, it must be mentioned that these scientists cannot even explain how the ancients actually cut this granite box with such precision. I mean, look at the angles on this, and obviously this thing has damage and erosion, so it will be fascinating to see what the inside stonework looks like once they open it up, particularly how level it is and the detailed precision of the angles. The very design of this stone box, particularly the lid, is incredibly similar, although about 2/3 smaller, the size of that of the 100-ton stone boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara, located near Memphis, Egypt. And even Zahi Hawass, the disgraced former minister of antiquities of Egypt, and in my opinion...
Disgraced? Zahi Hawass? His name is no longer good anymore? What's up? Oh, y'all motherfuckers is not asleep? What the fuck is going on? What the hell? Puff, okay, Puff, I already know how your ass is. This motherfucker do be up. But Exile, this motherfucker up too. That's what I was about to say. Good night, D. Take your ass to bed. I agree. Say what the hell? Honestly, I didn't think nobody was gonna be here. These motherfuckers is up. I feel you, bro. That shit, man. Motherfucking. You know how it is. Take your sleepy ass to bed. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna go stream. I probably just record a motherfucking stream and throw it up there. People can watch that shit later on. You know, I'm streaming, these motherfuckers really popping in here at 2 o'clock in the morning. What the hell is wrong with y'all? It all depends, bro. It all depends on what I'm painting and how big the portrait is will determine how long does it take to actually finish a portrait. I know that's right. Oh yeah, I'm always working on some new shit, bro. That's the only way to keep it moving, man. That's the only way to constantly just like push your abilities, push your creativity, is to constantly work on something. You know what I'm saying? And I get in these dry spells where it takes me a while to come up with my next painting, even if I don't like to call any of my paintings bullshit, but now I do see like some of my art is just busy work, and it's just something to paint, you know, just paint anything. If you don't have a real core, like hardcore series of or a body of work that you're currently working on, just paint anything and just keep painting, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is, yo. Yeah, that's what it is, guys. I figured motherfucker wouldn't be up, but at least motherfucker still stop through, show some love, holla at your boy. Shit, that shit mean a lot, bro. Trust me. Trust me, that shit be meaning a lot to me. Like I said, I just passed through to say what up, Trap. That's what it is. Yeah. Damn, what I was saying too? Oh, Zahi Hawass. Like, yo, Zahi Hawass, this motherfucker takes all the credit away from black Africans, yo. This motherfucker don't really feel like black Africans had any major significant role in the early dynastic periods of Giza in Egypt. And it's like, huh? Do what now? And he's Arab. He's an Arab. And he swears down like the Arabs did everything. Like that is Egypt is their shit. And it's like, dude, there is clear history that the Nubians and Ethiopians gave birth, and some older fucking cultures from further south gave birth to Egypt and gave birth to the dynasties. And then just like the same shit in America, like the European was not always here. It was a different group of darker skinned people who lived on this continent, and they called this land Turtle Island. You know what I'm saying? But in 400 years, only in 400 years, the demographics of the population of this body of land has changed dramatically, where you do not see the original inhabitants, the natives of Turtle Island. You don't see these motherfuckers here. They're on little reservations somewhere, and their culture has been so raped and pillaged and diluted, and their genetics have been inbred with other races and cultures that you can't hardly recognize the original inhabitants of North America. And the same thing was with Egypt. Like, yeah, you go there and you see all these fucking caramel and brown skinned Arabs who've been there for hundreds of years, but are they the original people of that area and who came up with that culture? No, they're not. Yeah, he hides that truth, yo. Hawass, yeah, that motherfucker don't like, cause he know, bro. And I think in his heart, and deep down in his heart, Hawass know what it is, and he just don't give that credit to black Africans, yo. I seen that video too. He takes his shoe off and he's slamming his shoe on the desk and all kind of stuff. I don't know if that's actually the translation. I doubt if that's the authentic translation that was in that video. Just because I don't know. I don't fucking speak Arabic, so anybody can say, "Oh, this is what that guy is saying." I don't know if that is what he was actually ranting about. Like you said, like this fucker was about to have a heart attack over that shit, but I don't know. We have our own studies, and we have our own scholars and researchers, and our people tell us the fucking truth, and that's what they know, man. The deeper you dig, the darker shit gets, yo. The deeper and the further you go back in time, the blacker and blacker history gets, and they hate admitting that shit, yo. But now, yeah, that's why I was thinking about this new sarcophagus and shit. Like, what the fuck is in this shit? But now I wonder how Hawass got discredited so bad, and publicly. Even this dude says it.
The very design of this stone box, particularly the lid, is incredibly similar, although about 2/3 smaller, the size of that of the 100-ton stone boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara, located near Memphis, Egypt. And even Zahi Hawass, the disgraced former minister of antiquities of Egypt, and in my opinion, a huge example of why the newly discovered sarcophagus lid should be opened on live TV is so important, but even this guy admitted on live TV that they have no idea how the dynastic Egyptians could have done these. And mind you that they are machined down to 2/10,000ths of an inch, and the corners are so precise that we can't do this today without using routers and diamond bit drills controlled by computers. So although these are much larger, in fact there are 27 of them by the way, and some measure as large as 14 feet high, 10 feet wide, and 15 feet long. And others are smaller and weigh 70 tons, but regardless, these pictures never do them justice for just how massive they really are. But it's interesting that the shape of the lid is virtually the same with the 3 cut angles when you compare. But the significance of the comparison is ultimately related to the fact that this is black granite, and bronze tooling that the dynastic Egyptians had could not have cut through this type of stone with anywhere near this level of precision. These methods have indeed been tested, and they failed miserably. They can only cut at a rate of a couple millimeters an hour, literally, and the saws wear out almost immediately.
But see, that's the thing too. The further you go back into what they call like the Stone Age shit, like it gets better. The oldest stone construction is better than the later or newer stone constructions. Like when you look at sites like Pumapuku and different places in Peru, and you can see that these ancient stone builders used these fucking giant megalithic blocks, and then other people came along, and somehow this giant stone construction, even that knowledge and understanding kind of faded away, and people came back to these sites and tried to rebuild them up. But you can see that they patched up sections of the wall and different sections of different sacred temples with smaller blocks and bricks, because they weren't able to match the same scale as the builders that came before them. And now you're finding these is like, oh well, the only thing about this sarcophagus is that it's black granite, and that the tools that they had would not be able to cut that. Well, maybe that's because an older group of people made that sarcophagus with more advanced techniques and tools, and somehow once again all of that shit got lost to our memory, to the collective memory of the human consciousness. Like nobody can remember how the fuck we did that shit, yo. How the fuck did we do that? And like I say, the further you go back, the bigger and heavier and more precise the stones and the cutting get. That Pandora's box, bro. That's what they saying. Open that shit live on TV. And that's the only thing too, is like, I'm gonna just go over to fucking Europe, go into the basement of some fucking cathedral and just start opening tombs of they fucking priests and they dead kings and shit, just to see what the fuck kind of gold and trinkets they were buried with. Make sure these motherfuckers Caucasian for real. Take some DNA samples and hair samples and shit. And everybody would gasp and have a fucking heart attack. You know what I'm saying? But they go dig up these motherfucking shits like it ain't nothing. It's science. No, motherfucker, that's a dead body. That's not science. You're fucking violating the fucking a tomb. They basically grave robbers. That's all it is. It's for science. Egyptology. Why is Egypt the only culture that has an ology at the end of it? Why is there no Asianology or Germanology, Americanology, Spanishology, Mexicanology? There is none of that shit. But you have an Egyptology. Well, we got to study Egypt. We got to make a science of this culture. There isn't even a Sumerianology or a Mesopotamianology or none of that shit. But there's an Egyptology. Never thought about that? Why is there a science about the Egyptian culture? That gives them the right to go crack open sarcophagi. I gotta see what's in it. Gotta study this shit for Egyptology. Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point. I mean, even with the early Mesoamerican cultures, Incas, and there's no Aztecology. Think about that shit, bro. What the fuck is that? Why is that? And I know it's a simple ass question, but I never heard anybody ask that question. And I'm not a fucking genius, but it seems weird that the Egyptian culture has some type of science to it, and that this motherfucker Zahi Hawass was like one of the main dudes over this shit for my generation. Because once again, they've been pillaging this shit since the fucking 1800s. Over there fucking shit up. Digging up shit. Taking shit. Ha ha ha, we found the Rosetta Stone. Now we can translate this and holy shit, we gotta go in here and whitewash all these pictures of these dark brown skinned people and dark black people. So let's make them more palish and whitish. I wonder how long this water's been sitting here. Doesn't taste like it's been poisoned by the bottle.
There's no comparison of precision, and besides that, no saws, none of this size, have ever been found or even depicted in hieroglyphs left by the ancient Egyptians. Explain how a saw of this size, less than a 2-foot blade, and never mind the fact that it's made of bronze, how is this thing going to cut through a stone that is 5.5 feet wide?
I had a series of visions when I was younger. And after each
The saw you're looking at now is the best and largest found from ancient Egypt. And the depictions of this saw are detailed by the Egyptians and can be seen only being used to cut wood, actually. It's ridiculous to suggest that bronze would have been used to cut through granite, and it's ridiculous for scientists to sketch up images of massive bronze saws, which there's no evidence to suggest that they even existed in the first place. And again, when they made one and tested it anyways, it failed. Yet they still teach these methods in school today. You see, it's important to understand this because it's called science, and it's actually being ignored by academics that teach us about our ancient past. If you followed my other videos, you've heard me discuss numerous lines of evidence about how ancient humans were far older and advanced than we were ever taught in school. So in other words, an advanced civilization, not necessarily as advanced as we are today, but advanced enough to do things that we can't wrap our minds around, at least involving this ancient stonework. Something happened to them about 12 to 13,000 years ago during the Younger Dryas cataclysmic event, which they don't teach that in school either.
Oh, so he's getting his stuff from the same place I get my shit from. He's been listening to a lot of fucking Graham Hancock and goddamn this motherfucker. What up, bro? Where the fuck your ass been at, Skynet? Oh, I get on too early for you. This your perfect time. This your perfect hours right here, huh? The creeping hours. I see who all the creeps is now. These motherfuckers up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Shaman. We got a winner.
And basically, over the last 13,000 years, the sands of time have eroded and erased pretty much everything other than megalithic stonework. So when I see this box and the 2,000-year-old narrative within every single news article on the topic, it feels like a foolish rush to judgment. The only reason why they came to this 2,000-year-old theory was because of this deteriorated alabaster head found not far from this granite box. And this alabaster head is clearly Greco-Roman, so the time frame would coincide with Alexander the Great being in Alexandria. So perhaps, yeah, maybe some nobleman living there at that time is buried in this box. I mean, really, it would not surprise me if some rich prick Roman took this box for himself to be buried in, and that's who we find inside. And of course, the Romans were there and set up shop in Alexandria, so of course it would make sense to find some notable burials in that area. But that doesn't mean that this box was created at that time. What I do know is, if they don't open this sealed sarcophagus on live video, conspiracy theories will likely be formed by people who are aware of the various cover-ups of the past involving the ancient Egyptians and modern antiquities. Make no mistake, and I'm not suggesting that anyone involved in this discovery would do anything to cover up or mislead anyone or anything. But with that said, there is zero reason to not have full transparency and public involvement in this discovery. I mean, there's really no acceptable reason to do this off camera, is there? I mean, because of technology, the whole world can pretty much watch this live. So there's really no reason to not do that, unless there's something I'm missing here, right? Just think about how exciting and what an incredible event it would be for people from around the world to be able to tune in and watch this on TV, or like I said, even on YouTube, because then they wouldn't even have to plan around network schedules or anything. They could do it for free on YouTube. In fact, they could make money doing it, and they could use that money for future excavations. And on top of all that, this is a huge PR opportunity for Egyptian antiquities, which are eager to develop and grow Egyptians' tourism within ancient sites in the country in general. So with all this said, it will be very exciting to see over the next couple days when they finally do open this and what we find inside. Well, that is unless they don't video it and they wait days and weeks into the future before finally sharing with the public what they found, which is something they've done numerous times in the past. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave it at that, but leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on all of this, and hit the like button and subscribe. But I'm Jimmy, this is Bright Insight. Take care, everybody.
Considering GMC Sierra, you might want to take a look at Ford Need a boost to your banking?
Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. On July the 1st, 2018, it was reported that a huge 30-ton sarcophagus was found below a building in Alexandria.
Oh, so this shit is older than I thought it was. This story, like I said, I've only heard about it maybe 3-4 days ago, something like that.
In Egypt. Ancient Architects. On July the 1st, 2018, it was reported that a huge 30-ton sarcophagus was found below a building in Alexandria in Egypt. Inspection of the sarcophagus revealed that it is made of black granite, 265 centimeters in length, or 8 feet 7 inches, and 185 centimeters in width, or around 6 feet. The security forces coordinated with the engineering department of the armed forces, as well as the tourism police, to extract the sarcophagus. Ayman Ashmori, head of the ancient Egyptian antiquities sector, said that the tomb was found at a depth of 5 meters below the surface of the land. It was also noted that there was a layer of mortar between the lid and the body of the sarcophagus, indicating that it had not been opened since it was closed in antiquity, which is quite a tantalizing prospect. It was found during an excavation in the Sidi Gaba district of Alexandria, as a team was inspecting a resident's land ahead of being planned for the foundations of a new building. The largest granite sarcophagus ever found in Alexandria, and it was found close to an alabaster stone head, which experts are saying was a depiction of the man who owned the tomb, an assumption that at present is of course unsubstantiated. Even though the coffin is unopened, we are told that it dates back to the later Ptolemaic period of Egyptian history, around 332 to 30 BC. And it is hard to argue too much with this Ptolemaic date, because it is almost identical in shape and size to the stone sarcophagus of Ueshnefer, although of course the new example from Alexandria does lack the inscriptions and carvings. This isn't unusual though, as the pitting on the sarcophagus looks to be the byproduct of chemical or acid erosion, which could have removed the inscriptions which on the sarcophagus of Ueshnefer are very fine. Ueshnefer was a priest of the goddess Mut, Nephthys, Sekhmet, Neith and Satis, and although his offices were in temples from Aswan to Coptos in Upper Egypt, his tomb from which this unusually large sarcophagus comes from was in the northern Egyptian necropolis of Saqqara. So who might be inside the new coffin discovery? Evidence suggests it is somebody from the Ptolemaic era, and the alabaster head certainly looks Greco-Roman in style. And due to the similarities between this and the example containing the priest, Ueshnefer, we could well be looking at another Ptolemaic priest. But as the alabaster head and the sarcophagus are so different in style, you could also argue that the coffin has been reused during the Ptolemaic era, which was also probably the case for Ueshnefer, as the carvings on the side of his stone tomb are actually quite similar to the carvings on the large stone boxes in the Serapeum of Saqqara, relatively fine, almost like they are scratched onto the surface of an older structure. Nobody doubts the fact that the carvings on the stone boxes in the Serapeum are much later than the age of the boxes. Therefore, it isn't impossible for Ueshnefer's tomb either. In fact, both the new discovery and the sarcophagus of Ueshnefer bear a striking resemblance to the stone boxes in the Serapeum of Saqqara. These boxes, believed...
That's what I'm saying, scratch. They're scratching these Yo, what up, man? They're scratching these images onto an older sarcophagus. These motherfuckers have been reusing this shit, yo. Especially when they talk about the Ptolemaic period from with Ptolemy and Ptolemus and all these motherfuckers who come into Egypt, even in the later dynasties with damn, I forgot the other Egyptian pharaoh name, but these motherfuckers was like Greco-Roman Persian type motherfuckers. They weren't even the original creators of the dynasties, and these motherfuckers were reusing older shit. Like, we found this black granite sarcophagus next to this Greco-Roman sculpture, but You know, the styles are two completely different fucking styles, man. Them Roman motherfuckers didn't even have the tech to build them sarcophagi, and they just found these big ass boxes and, oh well, let's scratch our symbols and words onto this shit. Like, y'all know y'all couldn't build that shit. Once again, man, the more ancient societies, and they're like, oh, Greece and Rome built all the roads and came up with this and the Colosseum and the Parthenon and blah 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 blah, and y'all still don't know how they built the pyramids though. I don't give a fuck what Greece and Rome did, because the goddamn Egyptians already had obelisks and pillars and all that shit, and y'all still can't figure out how they did it. The only thing y'all could do is go back and recarve the faces and edifices of their giant sculptures, and write over their the thousands of stone hieroglyphs, and reuse their sarcophagus, because y'all couldn't figure out how they did that shit. Or if you did know how they did it, it was obviously overkill, and it was too big. It was too big of a job for you to recreate it yourself. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And they found everything, and goddamn finishing touches. Nah, bro, this is just the second layer. So everything has 2 layers of paint except her dress, and now you can start to see. You can start to see where I'm trying to lighten her dress up and bring some of the lighter blues and turquoise out. And this dark section all here, this dark section all here has a lot of details in it. A lot of details are going to be in those 2 sections. So this is way from the finishing touches. So here, everything here in the center where her dress is at, this is still just 1 layer of paint. So this sleeve here has 2 layers of paint, and so I'm trying to fill in the blue and add a second layer of paint to the blue. Everything else has 2 layers of paint. Her skin, the pinks and the reds on her dress, her hair, the hairpiece, and the roses. So everything has 2 layers of paint. I'm adding the second layer of paint to the dress, and there's probably 2 more layers of paint I have to put on here. So I'm still looking at maybe 20 hours, maybe something like 20 hours, 25 hours maybe, before this shit is done. Yeah, this shit has got a long time to go. Yeah, them Arabs fucked up a lot of shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? Arabs were the first slave masters. The motherfuckers came in with that slavery in northern Africa hard as shit, you know. And then they helped conquer and take over a lot of centers of knowledge and education, man. The Hyksos and all these motherfuckers came in there, yo, and fucked shit up, because for some reason black Africans were the most kindest, lovingest people. You know what I'm saying? Just, oh yeah, come on then, we'll teach y'all shit. And motherfuckers just rape their ass every time. Other cultures is like, stay the fuck away from us, we're not teaching you anything. But nah, and it's always been like that through history. Like the dark skinned people, you know what I'm saying, the Moors kind of conquered, but they brought knowledge and education with their ass. Even when you look at, once again, the Americas, when the Europeans and the Italians started coming over here, and the Native Americans was like, yeah, oh, y'all don't know how to grow food? Well, we'll look out for y'all and help y'all out. You know what I'm saying? And that shit is just like backfires every time. That shit just backfires. Just trying to help a motherfucker out, you know, cultures have been decimated and destroyed just for being too nice. You have to be the conqueror. You have to be the colonizer. Or else you will become colonized. And that's what one group of people realized early on. You have to be the colonizer. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, in general, there's always been migration, man. People have always moved over the face of the planet. You know what I'm saying? It's just something natural, inherent to us. There's always been natural conditions, whereas man versus nature that forced migrations over the fucking 200,000 years that modern man has been alive. This planet itself, the planet itself, has forced us to move a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's just the natural inclination of man to explore has forced us into massive migrations. But for the most part, Africa's the jewel of this planet. It is the crown jewel. The land known as once it was the entire land mass was Ethiopia, Alkebulan, you want to call it Africa or whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? And it's rich, you know what I'm saying, in everything. And so for the most part, motherfuckers never really had to leave that bitch. You know what I'm saying? And once the family spread out everywhere else and settled down everywhere else, motherfuckers realized there ain't a lot of good shit here. Let's go back to Africa. And now in modern times, especially since the late 1700s, 1800s, the realization of the wealth that's in Africa has dominated the mind of all Western and European countries to take and control this massive landmass in order to control all the most important minerals and natural resources. But they try to tell you Africa's poor, and Africa's full of poor people. Africans have nothing and they know nothing. But for some reason, everybody want a piece of Africa.
To have been built for mummified bulls are said to date back to 1350 BC and are objects that have mystified Egyptologists and alternative ancient historians for millennia. Many believe they are far older though, due to the nature and quality of the stonework. So, the new sarcophagus found in Alexandria could have been built during the Ptolemaic era. It could also be older and reused during the Ptolemaic era, or there is a possibility that the contents of this stone sarcophagus are not actually Ptolemaic at all, but could be far older, and the lack of inscriptions on the lid could be because they were never there in the first place. But we are told that Alexandrian history began in 332 BC, and Egyptologists use this as evidence to say that the new stone sarcophagus cannot be any older. But as geoarchaeologist Jean-Anthony Stanley showed in his paper in 2017, there is direct evidence for settlements in Alexandria around 1000 BC. Geochemical analysis in Alexandria, conducted by Alan J. Veron and published in 2013, proved the existence of copper-based relics in the region during the pre- and early dynastic periods, extending back to around 4000 BC. His paper concludes with this statement: sediments constitute the first evidence of metal ore on the western margin of the Nile Delta during the pre-dynastic period at 3800 to 3500 BC, through to the early dynastic and Old Kingdom at 2900 to 2300 BC. suggesting human settlements and potential copper ore trading in Alexandria more than 3,000 years prior to Alexander the Great. So, scientists have proven that
3,000 years of history before Alexander the Great ever came there. 3,000 years. And that's all that we can see that has been recorded. You know what I'm saying? Because they say the early diagnostic period and then the pre-diagnostic period. And that's the thing. Okay, so Egypt had a dynasty. They had like 18 dynasties. No, more than that. But so the first dynasty, okay, the first Egyptian dynasty. But what was that shit founded on? That's always been my question, is like, and what came before that? And what came before that? And then they say God. And then I say, well, what came before God? And they say, well, God always was. And I say, all right, dude, okay, we can stop right there, I guess. I guess we can stop right there. But before you get to God, I want to know what came before that shit. Okay, the first Egypt dynasty. What came before that? What was that built off of? Some older cultures somewhere. Somebody had to come up with some shit, and it just ain't a bunch of people standing in a circle one day and say, hey, I think I'm going to be a pharaoh. And this going to be my dynasty. That shit don't happen like that. That shit take, thousands of years of cultural hierarchy and economics, government, and some kind of functioning society before someone, a group of people, a family, or an individual can even be placed to a level of kingship or, pharaohism or anything like that. So all these systems that made up the culture came from somewhere. Who's God's parents? That's what I'm saying, man. Motherfuckers saying some parts of Africa you don't even gotta plant seeds. Just throw them shits on the ground. Man, the earth's so goddamn fertile. Just throw that shit on the ground, that shit gonna grow.
Alexandria was populated and 1,800. Published in 2017, there is direct evidence for settlements in Alexandria around 1000 BC. Geochemical analysis in Alexandria, conducted by Alan J. Veron and published in 2013, proved the existence of copper-based relics in the region during the pre- and early dynastic periods, extending back to around 4000 BC. His paper concludes with this statement: sediments constitute the first evidence of metal ore on the western margin of the Nile Delta during the pre-dynastic period at 3800 to 3500 BC, through to the early dynastic and Old Kingdom at 2900 to 2300 BC, suggesting human settlements and potential copper ore trading in Alexandria more than 3,000 years prior to Alexander the Great. So, scientists have proven that Alexandria was populated and was a likely trading port way back in prehistory, which would have made it a strategic and important location in Egypt. Therefore, an ancient pre-dynastic or early dynastic sarcophagus found in Alexandria isn't actually that much of a stretch of the imagination. It actually makes sense, especially if it was an important trading port. The hole in the ground where the sarcophagus is found is being dubbed a tomb, consisting of just two items: a megalithic granite coffin and an eroded alabaster head. The head looks like it is certainly Greco-Roman. Nobody could argue that, but at this time, the sarcophagus could be any age. Of course, in the media, the so-called experts are already telling us that the sarcophagus is definitely Ptolemaic. I just think that at present, until it is opened, this is open to discussion. As Graham Hancock keeps tweeting, stuff keeps on getting older. And this Alexandrian sarcophagus could be another example. But until it is opened, nobody can really know for sure. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.
I guess Graham Hancock is one of the go-to guys for his theory, explanations, and research on older civilization that somehow is lost to memory, and what was remembered from this ancient civilization is the stone techniques. And that was the main thing that they were able to still recover and remember. And how to leave their mark is not with too much metals and steels that can rust away in a few millennia, or paper that'll crumble in a few hundred years. The best way to leave a mark and to leave an understanding and a recorded history is in stone. Carve that shit in stone. Somehow they still retain that ability, which was far more vastly complicated than we can still comprehend their stonework. And so they built all these structures in stone and left that shit for us. And somehow we still lost that information. We still lost this understanding of something. Oh yeah, you know they hate it. They're gonna try to compromise that shit. Compromise the greatness and say, oh, we were a part of that too. See, because we were there. We helped out. No. Nah. Motherfucker, we was the only people around for a long time. They say the basic foundations of everything. And then when they say even the last part, listen to the last part of this. He says,
I just think that at present, until it is opened, the so-called head looks like the whole dynastic and was a likely trading port way back in prehistory, the Great. So, scientists have proven that Alexandria was populated and was a likely trading port way back in prehistory, which would have made it a strategic and important location in Egypt. Therefore, in 2017, there is direct evidence for settlements in Alexandria around 1000 BC. Geochemical analysis in Alexandria, conducted by Alan J. Veron and published in 2013, proved the existence of copper-based relics in the region during the pre- and early dynastic periods, extending back to around 4000 BC.
They had copper relics 4000 BC, 6,000 years ago. Everybody knows what copper is, right? It's an ore. It's a metal. Copper. That's the thing that will always amaze me the most is mining and refining metals. Who the fuck came up with that shit? Who came up with that shit? I think that is the most ingenious idea, discovery ever. One of the most complex things that you can do is figure out how to mine first. What are you looking for when you're mining? Who the fuck told the first miner what to look for? What the fuck are you looking for? Can you just go mine some shit right now? Can you go mine some copper? Do you know what you'll be looking for if someone told you to go mine some copper or mine some silver or mine some gold or mine some steel? Would you know where to look for that shit at? Would you know how to get to it? Would you know how to extract that shit from the fucking earth? If you did know how to do all of that, if you did know how to locate it, extract it from the earth, and gather a quantity of raw ore, would you know how to smelt it and refine it into copper and then make it into a trinket 6,000 years ago? Even the process of mining took thousands of years to come up with. I can just imagine it was thousands of years of trial and error. But who came up with mining? What culture, what civilization was the first people to refine a ore? Who did that first? Ain't no instinct. That ain't no instinct. That's not instinctive, bro. That is complex thought. That is a concept, an abstract idea, and then you force that shit into nature somehow. Like, are you observe nature, and then you have this inner working of how this shit can become. But what the fuck? Who the fuck did that shit first? I think that's the most amazing achievement of all time in human history, is mining. Because if you look in the Bible, on the second page of the Bible, these motherfuckers mention gold. That's how important that shit is. That's how important mining is to the human race, yo. Is that even in your most sacred spiritual texts, the mentioning of gold is so important that it's in the first few pages of your Genesis story, where they mention a good quality of gold. What the fuck you care about? Why God care about gold? How do you get gold? You gotta mine gold. Or find it in fucking riverbeds, but still, how do you fucking smelt this shit? You know what I'm saying? That's still a crazy ass process. Motherfuckers just know that shit. Motherfuckers just know to gather this substance. But then you already gotta have an understanding of the kindling process and how to you gotta make something to smelt in. So you already gotta have a mastery of fire, a mastery of working with clay and pottery, and then taking this raw material and superheating this shit so that it's a liquid form, or at least malleable enough for you to actually physically shape it and form it how you want to. And then these motherfuckers was making jewelry out of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, thousands of years ago, motherfuckers had jewelry. Yo, that shit blows my fucking mind about, just any type of metal, silver, gold, copper, how they were able to fucking get this shit out the earth, superheat this shit, and then shape that shit into something they wanted to use. And Julius Caesar fucking with Cleopatra. It is. And mining is that's one of those things that I sit back and really just try to place my feet in the shoes of the earliest people who were doing that shit, yo. And motherfuckers still wonder why we have these fantasies about the alchemists and all this stuff. Like those early motherfuckers probably did seem like alchemists to other outside groups of people who come up on them. Motherfuckers got juries and shit on. They're like, what the fuck is that? What is he wearing? It's metal? How did you do that? You're a wizard. 21 Savage said he don't wear jewelry. Yeah. Well, I don't really care what 21 Savage does. But thanks for the tip. J. Cole don't wear jewelry. Oh, this was a good one.
As the official spokesowl for WGU, I do a lot of reading. I read where Forbes magazine said WGU is more focused on student learning than almost any other.
In the 21st dynasty of the Pharaohs, 3,000 years ago, there took place one night at a temple the funeral of Henut Tawi, the Lady of the Two Lands. Compared to the great rulers of Egypt, her burial was a modest affair. But just like the pharaohs, she too was mummified, and her body placed in the depths of a desert tomb, in the belief that it would give her immortality. And in an unexpected way, it has. Her mummified body waited throughout recorded history: the Greeks and Romans, the Dark and Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and Napoleon. Until in the early 19th century, her tomb was plundered. The King of Bavaria bought the ornate sarcophagus with the mummy inside. He gave it to a museum in Munich, where, for another century, Henut Tawi lay undisturbed. Then, 4 years ago, a German scientist, Dr. Svetla Balabanova, made a discovery which was to baffle Egyptologists and call into question whole areas of science, from archaeology to chemistry and botany. She discovered that the body of Henut Tawi contained large quantities of cocaine and nicotine. The surprise was not just that the Egyptians had taken drugs, but that these drugs come from tobacco and coca, plants completely unknown outside the Americas until thousands of years later, unheard of until Sir Walter Raleigh introduced smoking from the New World, or until cocaine was imported in the Victorian era. It was seemingly impossible for the ancient Egyptians to get hold of these substances. And so began the mystery of the cocaine mummies.
Oh, y'all ain't never heard about the cocaine mummies? Bruh.
It was in Munich in 1992 that researchers began a huge project to investigate the contents of mummies. When, as part of their study, they wanted to test for drugs, it was no surprise that they turned to toxicologist Dr. Svetla Balabanova for help. As the inventor of groundbreaking new methods for the detection of drugs in hair and sweat, she was highly respected in her field. Dr. Balabanova took samples from the mummies, which she pulverized and dissolved to make a solution. As she had done countless times before, she ran the samples through a system which uses antibodies to detect the presence of drugs and other substances. Then, as a backup, the samples were put through the GCMS machine, which can accurately identify substances by determining their molecular weight. As the graph emerged with peaks showing that drugs were present, and as the printer spewed out the analysis of just which drugs, something seemed to have gone very wrong.
The first positive results, of course, were a shock for me. I had not expected to find nicotine and cocaine, but that's what happened. I was absolutely sure it must be a mistake.
Like she say, Petrovkovich or whatever, what her name is, she was like, yo, I'm looking at my own research like, what the fuck? This can't be right. This says, this can't be right. You know, she doubted her own shit. And this, I haven't heard this exact version of it. This is on a different documentary, but I've heard it on another one. And I think the story goes that, okay, she doubted herself so much. She doubted her own findings. Now, this is a lady who does drug testing for a living. And she came up with, like, a drug testing shit for criminal cases in court. And she's using the same system. And she's finding this shit. She's like, fuck. So if I'm wrong, that means all the cases, all the criminal court cases that have used my system may have been flawed. And people could have been wrongfully in prison for my faulty procedures. And so she took her samples, clean samples, and sent them to somebody else and said, look, man, you test these motherfuckers. Because my lab is kind of goofy right now. Something is wrong. I need somebody else to test these shits. A whole different lab, if I'm not mistaken, in a whole different fucking country, came back with the same results. Same results of cocaine. And now everybody's puzzled. Like, what the fuck is this? How did they get cocaine? Yeah, but everybody knows that. You can look at Jay-Z at 22 and look at Jay-Z now at, 42 or some shit. And in old Jay-Z pictures, he has big gold chains on, big rings, and all this shit. And when you see Jay-Z now, does Jay-Z wear jewelry? When he does these interviews and stuff, is he wearing baggy jeans and Jordans and all that shit? Nah. No. It takes a minute to realize that. It takes a while to learn that shit. But people with money, they don't flash their money. You won't know a motherfucker with money. I sat beside the owner of he owns like a couple Sheraton hotels, and he owns a couple Hilton hotels. And so my girlfriend at the time was a bartender at one of the Hiltons. The Hilton Head Resort and shit. That shit was a nice ass hotel. And so I came in a bar, and I was just having a drink while she was at work. And I'm sitting beside this older white dude. Just some white guy. Some average looking white guy. And my girlfriend's like, oh, hey, Mr. Such and Such, you want your usual? She got him a drink, and, you know, everybody chat for a minute about some bullshit, and then he got up and walked away, and that was the owner. That was the owner of all the local hotels. Motherfucker had on some regular Dockers or some shit and a fucking some non-brand polo shirt. You know what I'm saying? Some regular ass fucking boat shoes, and it's like you wouldn't think that motherfucker was a multi-millionaire. I was just sitting beside a couple $1 million just now. That motherfucker looked plain Jane, regular as shit. You know what I'm saying? He had a little watch on, but it wasn't like no Rollie or no shit like that. He just had something to tell the fucking time. Yeah, not all that. Yeah, what I mean, but when you say jury, is like what kind of jury? Man, when I remember when the Clips first came out, the Clips had jury, but it was like one little spaghetti thin gold necklace or some shit, and a watch or some shit, man, or a little set of earrings. Motherfuckers don't be going all fucking goofy like a lot of these guys with, like, Lil Wayne and those boys started putting like, you know, millions of dollars just in your teeth. $1 million grill and all this extra shit, man. That shit look weird as hell. Even me, I've never been into that shit. I've never been into that flashy lifestyle. I spend thousands of dollars on other shit. I'm not gonna spend thousands of dollars just on jewelry. Oh, I gotta have like 5, 6 chains, 4 or 5 rings, you know, all this extra shit. It's just too much. That shit never made sense to me. A 5% chain. I'm not that deep into Jay-Z to know that he wears, you know, jewelry with a statement like a 5% chain. I don't even understand what that is, but that's cool for Jay-Z. I just noticed, like, nowadays when he did that last interview with what's the old white dude's name? He got the big ass gray beard now. David Letterman. That's Letterman or Jay Leno. No, yeah, no, it's David. Anyway, but and when you see him in pictures now with his kids and his wife, it's not that old flashy ass shit, you know. But that's what he gave us to grow up on is this jiggy, Jigga Jehovah type image where, you know, Maybachs and popping is, you know, buying a $500 bottle of champagne, and the only purpose of this champagne is to open it up and pour it on a girl. You know what I'm saying? And that's the visuals that he gave us. And now the visuals that you see when he puts himself out in mainstream are not those exact same visuals. He's toned down. He's way more chill and way more laid back because he knows better now. He has a little bit of wisdom. But it's so weird how a lot of these guys, the OGs, are starting to see, like, if you got longevity and money, all that flashy shit don't mean shit. Because they've been in the industry long enough. They've been around other people, older people, who've had more money longer than they've had it. And you don't see the Warren Buffetts and the motherfucking, the goddamn, what's the Apple dude. You don't see these motherfuckers walking around with tons of jewelry and, you know, the flashiest cars and shit. They just don't do it. It's ridiculous.
Balabanova ran the tests again and again.
Balabanova.
She sent fresh samples to 3 other labs, but the results kept being confirmed. The drugs were there. So she went ahead and published a paper. The reaction was a sharp reminder that science is a conservative.
Oh yeah, they went real quick because the documentary I listened to, that the other scientists that she sent the samples to, they actually had them people talking about it too. And they was telling their side, like, yeah, because we saw this shit and it came back the same way.
Balabanova ran the tests again and again. She sent fresh samples to 3 other labs, but the results kept being confirmed. The drugs were there. So she went ahead and published a paper. The reaction was a sharp reminder that science is a conservative world.
I got a pile of letters that were almost threatening, insulting letters saying that all this was nonsense, that I was fantasizing, that it was quite impossible because it was proven that before Columbus these plants were not found anywhere in the world apart from America.
Nirgendwo in der ganzen Welt außer Amerika vorhanden waren.
From toxicologists to anthropologists, everyone thought the same thing.
The first thing you think of is that this is just mad. It's wrong. There's contamination present. Maybe there's fraud present of some kind, but you don't think that cocaine can actually be present in an Egyptian mummy.
Yet Balabanova herself had been worried about contamination. First, she checked all the lab equipment. But being a forensic toxicologist, that wasn't all she did. Balabanova had learnt her trade working for the police and had been trained in the methods they use to investigate a suspicious death. She had been taught how vital it is when an autopsy is carried out to know whether the dead person has consumed or been given any drugs or poisons. And she had also been taught that a special forensic technique exists which can show that the deceased has consumed a drug and can rule out contamination at the same time. So, anxious to ensure that her tests on the mummies were beyond reproach, she used this very technique. It's called the hair shaft test. Drugs and other substances that are consumed by humans get into the hair protein, where they remain for months, or after death, forever. Hair samples from a body can be washed in alcohol, and the washing solution itself then tested. If the washing solution is clean but the hair comes up positive, then the drug must be inside the hair shaft, which means the person must have consumed it during their lifetime. It's considered proof against contamination before or after death.
The hair shaft test is accepted. If you know that you've taken your hair sample from this particular individual and the hair shaft is shown to contain the drug, well then it is proof positive that the person has taken that drug. So it is accepted in law. It's put people into prison.
The hair shaft test on the bodies of a couple in Jersey showed their 2 sons had drugged them before killing them. And aside from the Newell case, the technique has been used in countless others over the last 25 years. Since it's also used for drug tests on addicts, company employees, and in sport, to suggest it could produce false results was for Balabanova unthinkable.
There's no way there can be mistake in this test. This method is widely accepted and has been used thousands of times. If the results are not genuine, the explanation must lie elsewhere and not in my tests, because I'm 100% certain about the results.
If the fault was not in the tests, what else could lie behind the impossibility of mummies containing drugs from the plants coca and tobacco, from a continent not discovered until over 1,000 years after the end of the Egyptian civilization?
graduate in as few as 16 months, learning from full-time practicing nurse
That
faculty.
means something not right. You gotta. What? Oh, that's what you talking about? Yeah, I had that album from Lord Jamar. He actually made an album called the 5% album. Yeah, but Jay-Z wears a 5% chain, and then he hangs out with that one lady who does the spirit cooking shit. So it's weird. Like, you gotta think about these dudes, man. So this bitch hosts seances and spirit cooking parties, and then Jay-Z hangs out with her, and they're all dancing and singing and rapping together. It's like, but you're a 5%er, huh? Right. Right, okay. Yeah, that is true. I gotta grab a drink. I'm getting thirsty.
In search of an explanation, we went to one of the UK's foremost experts on mummies, a person who had spent years rummaging around the bodies of ancient Egyptians, Rosalie David.
When I was first informed that cocaine had been found in Egyptian mummies, I was absolutely astounded. It seemed quite
Hey. In search of an explanation, we went to one of the UK's foremost experts on mummies, a person who had spent years rummaging around in the bodies of ancient Egyptians, Rosalie David.
When I was first informed that cocaine had been found in Egyptian mummies, I was absolutely astounded. It seemed quite impossible that this should be the case.
Skeptical of Balabanova's results, Rosalie David decided to get some samples from her own mummies and have them tested, especially for Equinox.
They're so type of things to me. What we're going to do is to provide tissue samples and a hair sample from a number of mummies in the Manchester Museum collection. I should be very surprised to find that they had cocaine in them. It looks almost... Oh, you're near the ribs there, aren't you? Yes.
It would be a while before the results came back from the lab. Rosalie David's motive was not only to get an independent check on Balabanova's methods, she also wanted to run the same tests, but on different mummies.
Yes.
There we go.
For she had more than one idea about how Balabanova could have got a misleading result.
I think there were two ideas which sprang immediately to mind. One was that possibly something in the tests could give a false result. And the second was that possibly the mummies that had been tested were not truly ancient Egyptian, that they could be some of these false, relatively modern mummies, and so the traces of cocaine could be in those individuals.
What Rosalie David was referring to happened in Egypt in Victorian times. It was a gruesome operation to supply the antique dealers of Luxor. When 19th century travelers began to descend on Egypt in search of mummies and other valuables, the dealers might not always have the genuine article available. And so the crudely mummified body of a recently dead Egyptian might be procured instead. For a shriveled corpse would greatly increase the value of a genuine but empty sarcophagus. Sometimes collectors would buy only limbs or other mummified spare parts. These are doubly suspect, for the trade in fake mummies, particularly separate heads and limbs, has an even older origin.
Chocolate ice
Eating
cream.
the flesh of mummies was a common 16th century practice in Europe.
Doesn't
People
taste too
believed
bad
the
though.
mummies contained a black tar called bitumen, and so thought powder made from the ground up bodies would cure various illnesses. This is the very origin of the word mummy, from the Persian for bitumen. And although it actually made people sick, a roaring trade in powdered mummia grew up, supplied by body parts and tissue shipped in bulk from Egypt. The temptation to resort to it was high.
Very soon the demand outstripped the supply, and certainly in the 16th century a French physician undertook a study of this trade, and he found that in fact they were burying the bodies of convicted criminals in the sand. They were producing mummies, and these then became a source for the medicinal ingredient.
Could it be that the mummies Balabanova had tested were fakes? Carbon dating on mummies often produces incorrect results, so archaeologists rely on the provenance, knowing what tomb and excavation.
I was born in 2027, but I wish I'd grown up in the 1980s. This is
the mummy comes from,
2027,
and on examining the mummification techniques. So the only way for Rosalie David to check out her theory about fakes was to travel to Munich to see for herself the 7 mummies that were the cause.
Oh, I did hear that, yeah, about J Electronica.
The Munich mummies, as they are known, belong to the city's Egyptian Museum, which is housed in the old palace of King Ludwig I of Bavaria, who started the collection. Inside the museum, Rosalie David found the sarcophagus of Henot Tawi, the Lady of the Two Lands. She discovered from the museum catalogue that the coffin was bought by King Ludwig from an English traveller called Dodwell in 1845. There was no record of an exact excavation, but Henot Tawi was said to come from a tomb reserved for the priests and priestesses of the god Amun in Thebes. But while being shown the other coffins, Rosalie David discovered that apart from Henot Tawi, most of the Munich mummies are of unknown origin, and some of the tested mummies turned out to be only detached heads. According to the museum, research had revealed inscriptions, amulets, and complex embalming methods, which they claimed proved the mummies were ancient.
The investigation shows clearly that the Munich mummies are real Egyptian mummies, no fakes. No modern mummies. They come from ancient Egypt.
The obvious way to prove this was to show the mummies to Rosalie David. But all the museum would let her see were empty sarcophagi.
On grounds of religious respects, we don't show the mummies here in our galleries.
On grounds of religious respects. we don't show the mummies here. Wait a minute. So you telling me you're basically a grave robber? You have people from your country go to another country, dig up ancient dead bodies, take them out the earth, bring them to your country, sell them to you, and you put them in a museum, but then you say, oh, we don't show them here because of religious respect. Huh? What? Huh? You don't show them there because they're black. They're black people. They got hair like mine, and they're 6,000 years old. Oh, we don't show the mummies. Let me see that nigga. Break his ass out. That motherfucker look like my uncle, don't it? Yep. Look at them high cheekbones. I knew it.
The obvious way to prove this was to show the mummies to Rosalie David. But all the museum would let her see were empty sarcophagi.
On grounds of religious respects, we don't show the mummies here in our galleries. That's one point. And the other is that we don't allow to film the mummies and to show them on TV.
This wasn't always so, for the mummies had already been...
We don't allow to film the mummies or show them on TV. So this new black sarcophagus, like the dude suggested, why don't y'all open that shit live on TV, man? Do that shit live on YouTube. You really think they gonna do that shit and shock the world when they see a motherfucking, some pharaoh land up in that bitch with a big ass afro or some crazy ass shit, man? You think they want everybody to see that shit? Huh? They already done placed this fucking, they talking about, oh, and the only thing in the tomb was the head of this statue. I'm thinking that shit was a plant. Y'all motherfuckers probably put that shit there. Look. We already got to set this shit up. Look, guys. Look. We know it's a nigger inside this case, right? So look. Let's get this white Greco-Roman head sculpture. Let's set that in there. Photograph that, right? Photograph the sculpture next to the sarcophagus. Give the public a mental image, right? So then we gonna open the sarcophagus in a little dark room somewhere way off camera. And we're gonna say it was a Roman inside their sarcophagus. And that's the whole deal with the statue head. And meanwhile, they're gonna be pulling a motherfucker who looked like me out that shit and taking his body somewhere, trying to get DNA samples and all kind of shit and figure out that motherfucker was on cocaine too. Trippy, what up?
Been shown on television. Wie Kokain nach Ägypten. But this German film announcing Balabanova's results had caused more than a little fuss.
Die peruanischen Mumien stammen von Menschen, die lebten.
Now this is Richard Pryor back in the day, yo. Egypt. This is Egypt, 1909.
Professor! I got it open!
That's Richard Pryor. He the only black man. Everybody else, some white dudes. They get up
Good
inside.
heavens, man! Great Scott, we've discovered the fountain of all knowledge of Egypt in the entire world. Do you realize the importance of this moment, Smitty?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you see brilliance, the untold years?
I see it, sir.
This is massive. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Slide. Look, what is this? Tea. Yes. Cannot. This is the elixir of life, sir. The elixir of life? The cure for all diseases. Wait, see. Wait, there's an inscription on the bottom. Give it to me. Give it.
Open at other end.
Lunomics. This can't be. What? You know what this is? What is it, Buddha? It's the book of life. In the beginning, when man arrived on Earth, the black gods did leave their spacecraft, and they walked, and they named the beasts of the sea and the animals of the land. Heavens. And man in his blackness did walk the earth, making medicine. Medicine? They discovered time. These were all black people, goddamn.
Goddamn. Wait a minute.
See, they ain't nothing here about writing. This is ours. Wait till the brothers hear this. Buddha. I'm gonna get this book out of here, baby. This tells me real tea. Buddha and this ours. Self-control yourself, don't you see? What you mean, Jack? Look at this here. Black people started the music and the brain surgery back in the year 3 BC. Yes, Buddha. Man, they was getting down. This is it, brother. Yes, everybody gonna know about this. Listen, we can change the history. Civilization will be changed. Yeah, this is gonna be it. Get the bulldozers. There's nothing here. But, shut up. Good heavens, time for tea, eh? What?
Yo, that skit was funny as hell, yo. This is the book of life. In the beginning, when man walked the earth, the black gods came down from the spaceships, and man and all his blackness created science. And wait a minute, Jack, this is all about us. This is all about black people. I'm gonna get this book out of here, baby. They wound up locking his ass up in the tomb, talking about get the bulldozers. There's nothing to see here. Oh man, Richard Pryor was on it, boy. And first man in all his blackness. Wait a minute, man. This is about us, baby. We was getting down. Yo, I love that fucking skit, yo. You say what? Saturday Night Live did a skit similar to that one. I don't know. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in so long.
Carry heroes' courage.
But that is a classic skit, like way back then, and that's not even a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? Like 30, 40 years ago. Motherfucker Richard Pryor still was trying to hit motherfuckers say that shit. Like, look, bruh.
On TV. This wasn't always so, for the mummies had already been shown on television.
Wie Kokain nach Ägypten.
Yeah.
But this German film announcing Balabanova's results had caused more than a little fuss.
Well, it showed the mummies with straight hair.
And so now, even though giving access might defeat the accusation of harboring bogus mummies, it seemed the museum wanted nothing more to do with research they politely pointed out was far from respectable.
It's not absolutely proven, and I think it's not absolutely scientifically correct.
What? Why? Why don't you want to think it's It's absolutely scientifically correct when 4 different laboratories are saying from these samples there is a reoccurring evidence of the use of cocaine and tobacco. Cocaine and tobacco are native to the Americans and not to the African continent. How did cocaine and tobacco get from South America to Africa? That's the question they don't want to answer. That's why they don't want to show those mummies. Because these niggas was already selling back and forth with a trade route, trading in tobacco and cocaine and bananas and all other kind of shit that's not fucking known on the African continent at that time. They had fucking trade routes. That's how Hannibal Barker and his motherfuckers, not Hannibal Barker, but Abubakari. Got his motherfuckers over to the Americas. Sailing. Motherfuckers had boats. They always been the same motherfucking currents in the ocean. Shit. You think Vikings the only motherfuckers who ever said let's go sail somewhere? Nah, motherfucker. I'm gonna build a big ass boat. I'm gonna just get on the goddamn water and I'm gonna find some new land. And we're gonna find that shit. How? The currents, motherfucker. Wherever the current take us. End up in fucking South America some way. Oh, what's good, man? These motherfuckers over here smoking some shit. What the fuck is that? Tobacco? Let me take some of this shit back home with me. Africa has tobacco now. Yes. Yes, but what they're saying is ecologists say goddamn 5,000, 6,000 years ago, the tobacco plant was not native. It was not a native plant to northern Africa. It was just not, that wasn't a plant that you found in northern Africa. You know what I'm saying? You just don't. Just like the, what are those shits? Those giant ass sequoia trees in fucking California. Like those shits don't grow in Pennsylvania. And that's on the same continent. You know what I'm saying? There's certain places where certain fauna and flora are, and certain places there aren't. You know, crocodiles don't live everywhere. And there are certain plants that grow in really, really marshy, swampy conditions. And there's plants that grow in really arid conditions like deserts. And that's just how shit is. And for the most part, they're saying that cocaine and tobacco, at that period, they were not readily found in northern Africa. You just weren't going to find that shit there. Now is tobacco, yeah, I mean, the rubber tree, coffee, that's probably been there, but cocaine and tobacco, those are fairly new crops to northern Africa. Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's how, and how you think, like, once again, man, they say, oh, well, there's pyramids everywhere. There's pyramids in North America, Central America, South America, Asia, Africa. There's even large mounds in Europe. It's like, who were building all this shit? Because motherfuckers knew. Yeah, everybody was communicating somehow. Motherfuckers trading shit with each other, trading information, trading different fruits and vegetables and plants. You know what I'm saying? That shit is, oh yeah, because that was something, you know, a hardy plant that was readily growing in their natural environment. You know what I'm saying? You gotta utilize what's around you. Just like when them motherfucking, once again, man, the so-called pilgrims and all these motherfuckers come over here, them bitches ain't know how to grow corn. They ain't know how to grow some shit that'll sustain their ass, and how to fucking fish the shores and all that shit. Motherfuckers had to learn that shit.
Rosalie David had to make do with research papers and books from the museum. Were the Munich mummies fake?
I'm almost at 2 hours. I'll probably get out of here in a minute.
She decided that on balance they probably were the real thing.
From the documentation and the research which has been carried out on the Munich mummies, it seems evident that they are probably genuine, because they have packages of the viscera inside them, some with wax images of the gods on them, and also the state of mummification itself is very good. I would say that the detached heads we can't comment on, but the complete bodies probably are genuine.
And if that wasn't enough, it turned out the results from the Munich mummies were not the only evidence from the dead. The anthropologists who had originally ordered the tests didn't continue the project, but Balabanova, alongside her normal research into the metabolism of drugs, started requesting samples of other ancient human remains from universities. And it was then that she got more results from Egypt. She tested tissue from 134 naturally preserved bodies from an excavated cemetery in the Sudan, once part of the Egyptian Empire. Although from a later period, the bodies were still many centuries before Columbus discovered the Americas, about a third of them tested positive for nicotine and cocaine. Balabanova was mystified by the presence of cocaine in Africa, but thought she might have a way of explaining the nicotine. As well as Egypt and the Sudan, she also tested bodies from China, Germany, and Austria, spanning a period from 3700 BC to 1100 AD. A percentage of the bodies from all these other regions also contained nicotine.
I continued to work on it because I wanted to be sure about my results. And after I had tested 3,000 samples, I was absolutely certain that the tobacco plant was known in Europe and Africa long before Columbus.
Far from being solved, the mystery that began in Egypt was spreading.
Trade routes, man. Motherfuckers been trading before.
Balabanova was suggesting that
long
an unknown
before.
type of tobacco had grown in Africa, Europe, and Asia thousands of years ago. But every schoolchild knows that tobacco was discovered in the New World. She was asking for a substantial slice of botany and history to be completely rewritten. Would anyone back her up? Dr. Balabanova had told us that we might find the secret behind the mysterious presence of nicotine and cocaine in Egyptian mummies in the ancient plants of Africa. Perhaps there had been drug plants which the Egyptians used, but which vanished along with their civilization. This led to a much more basic question. Were the Egyptians, the great pharaohs and pyramid builders, really users and abusers of drugs?
You know how hard it is to build a pyramid? You think I'm doing this shit sober?
Found hidden in the walls of the Grand Temple of Karnak. The entire building is covered in depictions of the lotus flower, from the tops of the vast columns to the pictograms on the walls. Until recently, Egyptologists took this most commonplace Egyptian symbol to have only a religious meaning. But according to some, the true significance of the lotus has been overlooked.
The lotus
The
gets you
lotus
high.
was a very powerful narcotic which was used in ancient Egypt and presumably was widespread in this use because we see many scenes of individuals holding a cup and dropping a lotus flower into the cup which contained wine, and this would be a way of releasing the narcotic. The ancient Egyptians certainly used drugs. As well as lotus, they had mandrake and cannabis, and there is a strong suggestion that they also used opium.
The mandrake
So,
root.
although it is very surprising to find cocaine in mummies, the other elements were certainly in use.
So the pharaohs clearly indulged in drugs. Hashish, which Balabanova also found in the mummies, is an Egyptian tradition which has survived through thousands of years. Although nowadays in public, pipes tend to be filled with nothing more than tobacco. By contrast, the narcotic blue lotus flower, once so essential at parties, is now on the verge of extinction. And if it could disappear, why not other drug plants? We decided to pursue Balabanova's unusual theory that an ancient species of tobacco might once have grown in the old world.
I don't think that's how that shit got there. Come on with the commercials. Like I said, I've never heard this documentary.
But the high concentrations sought by smokers can only be found in tobacco. The idea of a lost species,
of tobacco
because
plant?
the concentrations in the bodies from Asia and Europe were similar to modern-day smokers. But one thing had puzzled her. At 35 times the dose for smokers, the amounts she found in Egyptian mummies were potentially lethal. At first, Balabanova was baffled. But then she had a thought. The high doses in Egyptian bodies could be accounted for if the tobacco, as well as being consumed, had also been used in mummification.
Using tobacco to stuff the bodies? Or a form, a plant that was similar to tobacco?
The Egyptian priests kept the recipes of spices and herbs used to preserve the thousands of people and millions of animals they mummified, a closely guarded secret. The high levels of nicotine in tobacco can kill bacteria. Could it have been one of their secrets? Balabanova looked through old literature about the bodies of the great pharaohs and queens themselves. No longer under the care of the priests, the fragile royal mummies are now kept in strict atmospheric conditions in the Cairo Museum.
Alright, I'm at 2 hours. I think I'm going to take a break from this,
Balabanova
guys.
discovered a story from the days when scientists could still tamper with them. A story that had almost been forgotten. Ramses II died in 1213 BC, a few hundred years before Henut-Tawi. When he was mummified, every possible skill and every rare magical ingredient was used by the embalmers in their attempts to preserve his body for eternity. For where Henut-Tawi was only a priestess, Ramses was arguably the mightiest of all the pharaohs. His imposing image adorns most of Egypt's famous sites, for he presided over the golden age of its civilization, and as a skilled military commander won the conquest that made it into a powerful empire. But what interested Balabanova was what happened to Ramses 3,000 years later, when he went on his final royal visit.
Les chercheurs français viennent de révéler qu'ils avaient réalisé de nouvelles découvertes en étudiant la momie du pharaon Ramsès II. Un détachement de la garde républicaine.
On September the 26th, 1976, amid all the pomp and circumstance due a visiting head of state, French TV cameras recorded the arrival of the mummy of Ramses II at an airport in Paris.
Posé au musée du Caire, visité chaque jour par des milliers de personnes.
An exhibition about him at the Museum of Mankind was planned.
Un début de décomposition.
I'll probably go play the game for about an hour. What time is it? I do need to go back to sleep. I'm not going to the gym this morning. I thought about it. I don't know. I just went to bed too early. I went to bed too early and I woke up like 1 something. I'm like, what the fuck? I got up and I really did not feel sleepy. So I probably won't even go to the gym, man. Like, I'll probably just play the game for an hour and take my ass back to sleep. Wake up and come back to the studio. Fuck it. I need to start throwing an extra day off from the gym anyway. I go like fucking 5-6 days in a row. Somebody said really is like 4 days is good. Like 4 days, 2 days off. You know, like 5 days, 2 days off. 4 days, 1 day off or some shit like that. You give your body more time to rest and recuperate from all that shit. I actually need more downtime. I've been going pretty hard for a couple months. I remember a couple times I went like fucking 12 days in a row. Just go to the gym every day, lifting every day for like 12 days. With no downtime. But they say that downtime is what actually helps you grow because your body's healing and absorbing and building that mass up. So like now, nowadays I don't feel it. I've been to the gym since Monday. So I went 3 days in a row. And that's only, well, I actually worked out across the weekend. I was in Virginia over the weekend. I didn't go to the gym down there exactly, but my aunt has some workout equipment in her basement. So I did work out. I just didn't go to the gym. So I actually worked out Friday, Saturday, not Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today is Thursday. Yeah, so that's not bad. I think I can take a day off. My day off from the gym, I don't really, I just take them off when I feel like it. Every once in a while, like I said, I just take 2 days off. Yo, what up? I was just about to get out of here, bro. I'm gonna go downstairs and start up another stream, yo. I'm about to go play some Ghost Recon Wildlands for like an hour or so, and then I'll take my ass back to sleep. But I'm gonna hit this last bong rip real quick. One last rip before I go get on the game. Pack it real nice, man. Pack it real tight. All I really need to do is grab this flame. Yo, this painting is looking beautiful. No, I have not heard of this artist, Bofa, from Morocco. Should I look him up? Should I look up Bofa from Morocco? That was not funny in the slightest. I know it's past your bedtime, bro. You need to. If that's the best you have, you should definitely take your ass to sleep right now. If that's the best you have, you know what I'm saying? Just go ahead and turn it in for the night, bro. You done. You done for the evening. You know. Call it a night. Let's try it again tomorrow. Do I have gold paint? Yeah, I got gold paint. I got gold ink. I got gold color pencils. Matter of fact, I got rich. That shit says rich gold. Yeah, the kids are still up. Yeah, this dude is trying so hard, yo, but it is what it is, bro. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. So like I said, when I come back in here, just continue to work on the blue, bring that blue around, and then the next thing is I'll probably start adding that yellow in there. Just get one's attention so bad, bro. We see you, man. We see you. Everybody can read your comments. We know that you're there. Okay? You have anything else? I'm about to turn the stream off. You have anything else you want to say before I turn the stream off? All right, guys. Peace.